Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our second troubleshoot session dedicated to CTIS users. So my name is Deborah Braga. So I will be guiding you today through the presentation. Just a brief note on my background. So I graduated as a pharmacist. I have a master in pharmaceutical industry. I worked before joining the EMA. I worked in other companies in a pharmaceutical industry, also in a clinical research organization. I joined EMA in 2016, and I have been working with the sport team, supporting not only OMS, also SMS and RMS development. I'm currently the OMS business lead and subject matter expert. And my day to day, I'm actively involved in not only OMS system develop, but also system integration, training, and dissemination of knowledge on system functionality, but also very important, this is what we're here today, on business rules, both to internal and external stakeholders. So without further ado, so for today, um, we we received a short number of OMS questions. So today's session is going to be shorter than the first one. Anyway, I hope you'll take benefit of this content. So we received 3 questions, one in change request process, one in data management, and the last one on organization name standards. So the first question was related with personal email address. So is it expected, does OMS expect upon registration to have vendors creating a general inbox or even generating a functional phone number? And the answer to this question is no. Of course, the communication details, both telephone number and email address, they are non-mandatory. Our recommendation is that you always use a functional number, not only due to several reasons. So first, this is a field that is non-mandatory, as I mentioned. To change this both two fields, you can do it via change request. You can add, update any of those details. We do not have a validation process for this, so we kindly ask you to take cautious every time you're doing this. You're submitting a change request to add or to delete any of that information, especially because the information that is there is public. Everyone can see. An additional note on these details. So the phone, both phone number and email address, they are captured at location level, and it will only be available one per location. So just to give you a bit more, a wider overview of when we look at OMS, OMS is used by multiple consuming systems. And when I say this, I refer to multiple regulatory procedures. So not only for CTIS, but OMS is also used, for example, for vet products, for inspection certificates, and that is the reason why our recommendation goes to always, if you'd like to have some sort of details in the OMS dictionary, please always use functional contact details, phone number and email address. In the event that a certain person leaves the company, you don't need to update the data in OMS. You'll always have a valid contact detail available in our dictionary. And just to looking at the change request process, this is also a question that we also received a lot, because especially because in our form, in our OMS form, our change request form, we have mainly two types of information, two fields where you will be able to capture your email address and phone number. But those two fields, they are different. One of them is related with the change request details, so this information is confidential, and especially the email is mandatory, because so that you can receive not only an acknowledgement that your change request has been submitted, but also so that you can receive the outcome. Once the change request has been validated and approved or rejected, you'll receive an email with the outcome of your change request. So this first section, this part is confidential information. It's never published or shared internally. It's only OMS team can see it. This second part, which is those communication details that are publicly available, this is the field that our recommendation goes to functional contact details. So for OMS data management, you do not need to create those communications. Of course, any other communications that may be needed for CTIS use, for CTIS purpose, then they will have to be maintained directly in CTIS. Second question that we've received, and we often receive this question, is what type of organizations actually take part, what does OMS manages in terms of data. So this is something that we already kind of touch base in our first troubleshoot session, but I'll just like to leave here a couple of notes. So getting back to one of the OMS key principles, which is that OMS manages organizations as a legal entity, as well as all its physical locations associated to a certain country or jurisdiction. So, in a nutshell, we validate those entities based on information available on the National Business Registry. Those are the entities that to every country will need to be registered there. However, we understand that there may be other entities that are needed for regulatory procedures, and for that reason, we've already created a couple of exceptions. And in those exceptions today, we include public entities such as Ministry of Health. It's the case for example, ethics committees, or even NCAs. These are all in the scope of these public entities. We also include hospitals and universities. They, most of the times, not always, but most of the times, they are not registered with the local authorities, so we include them. And this is something that is ongoing. We are recently creating a validation process so that we can include in our exception some clinics that are used specially for CTIS use, not only, also because we acknowledge that those are needed not only for CTIS, but also for Eldred GMDP to issue an inspection certificate. And it was following the understanding, the need of that such data needed to be included in our dictionary as master data. And following this, we are now we've started creating already some of these clinics in our dictionary, and we are now trying to work and implement a robust validation process that will help us create those entities and validate those entities before add them into our dictionary. Of course, this, taking back to our previous troubleshoot session, Any details such as department and units, they will not be captured in OMS. Going back to the beginning of the slide, OMS will capture as a legal entity, so we will be able to create as many locations as needed under a certain the same organization. So a department can be maintained in OMS as a separate location. However, in OMS we will never be able to capture the department name or the unit name, and OMS will not maintain those details. Those details need to be captured directly in CTIS. Also, an exclusion to our dictionary, which are individuals. We also talked about this in our previous session. Currently, individuals and PIs, they are also not captured in our dictionary because the mandate of our master data management is that we manage organizations. OMS does not manage individuals. And as a final question, which is, and this is not only applicable to Sweden, this is applicable to all countries that have their own character sets. We understand that this is applicable not only to Sweden, we have a couple of them included as part of the EEA countries. And the question was that it was not possible to search this, and the answer to this statement is that it is possible as long as we have it in our dictionary, because we are because OMS it's under the EMA, so we maintain our data as English character sets, because our data is supposed to be used, it aimed to be used by the whole EEA, and we acknowledge that not all countries that may be in need of using a certain type of organization that has those character sets, they may not have the right keys, and in order to avoid this, what the approach that we take, and also not only for the reason but also to simplify the search, because every time we have consuming systems reading our information, most of the times they do not recognize these symbols, and when they read the information, these symbols are unrecognizable in the consuming system. That was the reason why we created this rule. So in OMS, organization name will always be maintained, the main organization name will always be maintained using English character sets, and when applicable and when available, we will be able to maintain the local character sets as an alternative name. So we have a dedicated field for this. And every time the user uses our OMS portal and searches, regardless if they are using, I even brought you an example here, regardless if you are searching with the special character sets or not, the system will always display you the master record. Of course, we will, for the system to work this way, we will always need to have the local language as alternative name. But this is what we're trying to work, and every time we create a record that has this these special characters or the local language character sets, we always translate into the English characters, and we add an alternative name so that we can simplify every time the users try to query our OMS portal. And in this case, this example that I brought here to show you, so we have an organization name. I queried the system with the accents, and as you can see, the system actually retrieved me 3 organizations. All of them, as you can see, the main organization does not have those accents, but because they have an alternative name with those accents, this is the reason why it's displaying the outcome of my query shows these three organizations. And the same, just a note, and I think this was probably the reason why this question came, because in the OMS consuming systems, the main name that will be displayed is going to be only the name and the address details. The address details work in the same way as the organization name. We will maintain them in English character sets, and every time the National Postal Service recognize the address, we will be able to create a second version or a child record of the same with the local character set. But as the name mentions, OMS aim to provide standardized and OMS aims to provide a dictionary of standardized data, and any further details that are not available in the consuming system, they can always be found directly in our dictionary. And with this, we end today's session. I hope this was helpful. And I would like to invite you to fill in a short survey. I will ask you to please use the QR code that better reflects the role that you have, either a sponsor or a member state. And we're happy to hear if you find that this session was useful. Any thoughts will be much appreciated. And last but not least, I'll just leave you the links to our next troubleshoot session, which will take place at the end of September. Not to forget that to submit the questions, you'll need to access Slido with the respective user code. And last but not least, for this session in September, please submit your questions before 15th of September. Any questions that are submitted afterwards 15, they will be addressed on the troubleshoot that we're gonna have scheduled for October. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again in September. Have a good day.